Hello and welcome to Deconstructed, the show where we take a list that we've actually already done and then just break it down entry by entry to talk about why things placed where they did and whether or not we were wrong. Today's entry is the top 10 games that are not as good as you remember them, hitting you right in the nostalgia. Let's take a look at that ranking. All right, plenty to talk about as per the usual, so let's meet the panel who we're going to be talking about these things with.
Hello.
We got Dave, our senior editor from the video games department, and Ricky, our junior editor from the video games department. That's right. Cool, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts going in? Games that didn't age so well?
God help us.
God help us all? Yeah.
I'm with Dave.
This is constructive criticism, everybody. We're just getting, you know what, maybe it's not as good. We're not telling you the games you love are bad. And you're not certainly bad for watching them.
Some of these got better with sequels. I'm going to say that right now.
Yeah, well, but let's get right into it, and then, because I got something to say on that. All right, so we got Grand Theft Auto 3, and this is going to come up so many times, pretty much for every entry, so I want to get this out of the way. What I feel like is that since people have played the sequels to a lot of these games, they kind of forget that a lot of the features that were in them weren't actually in place until later entries.
Exactly.
And I think Grand Theft Auto is a great example of that.
Yeah, it's a perfect example, yeah.
Like the ability to jump out of your moving car.
Yeah.
That only came in Vice City.
Right.
Just a lot of stuff. And so what are your thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 3?
Well, yeah, the thing, I was playing Grand Theft Auto 3 recently because I had to get footage for it, and yeah, going back to that after playing stuff like Grand Theft Auto 5 or any other open world games, like say, I don't know, Red Dead or I don't know, anything.
Yeah.
It's clunky.
It's
very clunky. Like you drive around in the world, and it's supposed to be like a recreation of sort of New York City.
It's supposed to be New York for sure.
Yeah, but there's barely anyone in the city, so like it's.
Well, it's old. And that's one of the things I would think. Obviously these games are old, and almost all of these games are extremely important, especially for their own series. But I think your rose-tinted glasses really sort of populate the city a bit more, give it more traffic, give it more luster. You know?
And given that it's obviously the first 3D outing for Grand Theft Auto, I mean there was a lot of expectation, and for the most part the game did deliver. But then you look a year later with Vice City, and it's so much more vibrant, and the characters are also much more fleshed out. And the main character played by
Ray Liotta.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just a year, but you see that evolution in a year, and you're like, okay, you look back at GTA 3, you're like, it was the first outing, it did a great job, but look at a year later what Vice City did.
The next iteration was great.
It was great, yeah.
San Andreas was
exactly. It just kept going up from there.
I think this is really like a victim of time and innovation, because open world games, they've changed a lot over the years, and you look at something like this now, and if this game were to release today, but you didn't know it was originally released in 2002, you'd probably think it was what is this? This feels really clunky.
You're saying that if you released an old game in the modern day, people would be like, wow, this game is old?
Well, but it's not called, but it's not like a declaration that it's originally released as an old game.
Oh, okay. All right, seems kind of self-evident to me, but let's move on. EverQuest.
Ooh.
Gentlemen, did you play EverQuest?
I did not, no.
Okay, so here's the thing. Less so the mechanics of it, because I think everyone remembers that the mechanics in EverQuest are draconian. You can lose your shit, you lose experience,
so bad.
and everyone remembers the walls of text and the shit.
It was
UI.
bad UI from the start.
I just think that the fact that people had great experiences in this game kind of smooths a lot of that stuff out. I really fail to believe that people fully remember how crappy EverQuest looks. And you can play it, by the way. There are servers out there. There are legacy servers. You can play it. And I just think that EverQuest provided a model for every MMO to come after for how to make quality of life improvements, how to make it less painful to actually play your game.
MMOs are still repetitive by nature, but and the quests here were very, bland, I guess. But it was more about the interaction, the player interaction at a time where that was incredible to be able to link up with somebody anywhere in the world and get together and do quests. I mean, that's really what EverQuest brought.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at this screenshot here. It kind of looks like the sort of Kate Upton Game of War style adverts that you see on the side of them.
It definitely piqued the interest of some people for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, hey man, if it helps you
It
sell
worked.
your game.
It worked. You know?
Oh wait, I had another point to make about this. Okay, so just to be the contrarian for a second, I think the pull of EverQuest, especially nowadays, is because there's all these super tough systems within it that like people crave. You know, with the advent of Dark Souls and like harder games, I think, you know, EverQuest is the Dark Souls of MMOs. Like you really, I promise not to use that example ever again. I've already hit my quota. But like it really is because
There's no manual either.
There is a manual.
It's really badly written. People had no idea what was going on. Like, you're just learning for yourself at that point.
But basically what I'm saying is, like, because the game is so challenging by design, I think that's kind of the appeal of it. So I'll give it a little bit of a pass. That's why it sits comfortably at number 9.
Agreed.
Okay.
So we were just talking about using booby box art to sell your game. And I think the queen of booby box art is here. But the funniest part, I'm sure you guys have seen the cosplay for this game, the angular, the triangular boobs. Look that up, by the way. Original Polygon Tomb Raider cosplay. It's hilarious. Or maybe we can get it on screen. There we go. The magic of editing. Okay. You're probably editing this one, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So
Everyone,
Ricky did it. Ricky did it. This is one of those things. Remember, I mentioned with Grand Theft Auto how the mechanics, people. You know, you can remember how a game looked kind of crappy, but a lot of people don't quite remember how big the quality of life improvements are in later entries. And I think Tomb Raider, the original Tomb Raider is a great example of that. The game is clunky as hell compared to Tomb Raider 2, 3, and the 48 other games they made before they had to reboot it.
To be honest, when the game first came out, I actually didn't like it when it originally came out because I felt like it was very clunky and it was very hard to control.
I think one of the things that this list brings up, and we don't have to dwell on Tomb Raider too much, but I think it's a good example of it, is that like, people kind of conflate how important a game is for its like how it started something with how good it actually was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great example. Like it's a very important game, especially for the Tomb Raider franchise, but
It's the cameras, but this was a problem with a lot of these
3D platforms.
Yeah,
exactly,
that's a
the cameras
huge
were
problem,
bad,
yeah.
the controls were clunky. They didn't really know about how the gunplay was working at that point.
They also had a lot of problems with level design in 3D as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was very bland as well.
it got better.
It got better.
It got better, yeah.
and
for
that's
sure.
what matters.
Does it though? Not for this list. Okay, gentlemen, I'm gonna have to pass this off to you because these are the only Pokemon games I've really played. So tell me, why are these not as good as people remember them being?
Well, compared to the later Pokemon games in the series, it's they've definitely refined the mechanics a lot better. These ones here, they had a lot of problems, especially with a lot of the balancing issues. For one of the biggest issues was the fact that psychic Pokemon were way too overpowered.
Right.
Like originally it was designed that Ghost Pokemon were the strongest Pokemon against psychic Pokemon. But the problem is they designed it so that all the Ghost Pokemon had poison in it, and poison was weak to psychic. So the only other stat that was strong against him was Bug.
And there was terrible bug Pokemon.
Terrible Bug Pokemon.
Nobody's using your Weedle. Nobody's using the Weedle. Or
Yeah,
Let's use a bug Pokemon.
Exactly. Like the thing. Like Bug Pokemon in the first game, they were terrible.
Okay, so what I think is kind of funny about this is that like when I was playing it and when I think a lot of people like really started playing it to form the base of their nostalgia, things like balancing issues, that doesn't really come up. I powered through this game with Blastoise. I had like Blastoise at level like 60 or whatever the cap was. I don't know if is there a cap in this game? A level cap?
Level 100. Yeah.
Okay, so I had Blastoise at like an obscenely high level, and then 3 guys at level like 10. Like who I would never ever use.
I think
Only if Blastoise would fall.
Well, the other issue was that although the trainers just used random moves, even if it was ineffective. Like I remember seeing trainers that would constantly use Dream Eater, which is a move you can only use when your Pokemon is asleep.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which is like, why are you using that move?
So would you say that like the problems of this game are purely based in the like sort of the balancing and the mechanics and stuff like that?
I think they were still learning how a Pokemon game should be because like
It was the first one.
it was the very first one. They had a lot to learn, and I think they've refined a lot of the issues in Gold and Silver, which is still probably, in my opinion, one of the best.
Fire Red and Leaf Green were fantastic.
Oh yeah, and they were good.
They were really great.
They were good as well, and in fact, we're actually getting a reimagining.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I played that. I've played all of these, and I played the.
Well, technically, it's a reimagining
ones?
of Pokemon Yellow, which is like where you choose between either Pikachu or Eevee.
It's like the binary.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Pokemon. Funny story here. We were just talking between takes. Ricky screwed up. Ricky was prepping this. This is Super Double Dragon. This isn't the right picture.
No, it's not.
So it's aged even worse than this. Dave, you were recently playing this. We were capturing footage, and you were playing this one. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I did. Like, one of the things about Double Dragon is, like, I was playing the arcade version, and it's very, very slow to move. Like, compared to a lot of other side-scrolling beat-em-ups, like the Ninja Turtles games, in the Simpsons arcade game.
So even for the time.
Yeah, like, even for the time, it moves very weird. Like, the hit detection is very off. And the combat just feels like clunky overall.
I think it's another great example of how this, like, you don't really realize how much the quality of life improvements have improved your quality of life until you go back and have them taken away again.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, a lot of people, when they think of Double Dragon, they think of the NES version as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the NES version was even worse because you can only have, I think it was only had like 2 characters on screen.
And you had 1 player.
And you only had 1 player. Like, so like if it was 2 players, you would alternate between the 2.
That doesn't even make any sense.
No,
that's just terrible.
It defeats the whole purpose of having a beat 'em up.
Which is funny. I think one of the good examples would be, like, if you were to give someone an NES and say, like, this is the only console you can ever play, what games would you pick? They would probably pick Double Dragon because it's a recognizable name and they think they're getting that sweet beat 'em up action.
Yeah, like Super Double Dragon here is actually, this is actually a decent game. It was a bit rushed and it feels a bit unfinished, but it's still pretty decent.
We're not talking about this one, Dave.
Yeah, I know, but you brought it up,
You
Ricky.
brought it up.
Hey, it's part of the Double Dragon legacy. So quality of life improvements in this one? Maybe?
Probably, but there was Double Dragon 4, which came out recently, and
that wasn't well received.
No,
I don't think.
it wasn't. No.
But what I really want to talk about is the movie, but that's another day.
There's a movie?
Oh boy, the movie. Yeah,
I didn't
there
even
is a
know that.
movie.
Maybe that's for the better that
the
I
guy
don't
from
know
Terminator 2 is the bad guy, and it's pretty sweet. Here's one that I don't think is even good. So I'm gonna have to ask the guys why people might believe that this game is better than they remember it. Because personally, Battletoads. I was a Ninja Turtles fan, so I could,
there you go.
Even at like a tender age of 8 years old, I was like, this is clearly trying to profit off the bankability of the Ninja Turtles. Anyway.
Clearly it was, but I think this game was remembered and I don't know why loved, but for its difficulty, and it's probably just because it was like really broken and hard to maneuver.
Would you say it's the...
Don't say it.
No.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
You've reached the quota.
No, it's the Bloodborne of...
Okay.
Battletoads. This is the only entry I'd remove. Would you guys think it's a good spot here? I just like I didn't
think it was that good to begin with either. I actually kind of agree with you. Like, I didn't play it until like I was well into my adult years because I kind of missed out on that. But even playing this like today, it doesn't feel that good of a game.
I think this might be a Mike Patel pick, or maybe someone rocked the vote on the suggest page. By the way, go use our suggest page. Not right now, but www.watchmojo.com/suggest to suggest better suggestions than this. Mass Effect. I was actually just talking to a buddy about why I bounced off this game like 3 times.
Because of cover shooting.
Not because of cover shooting. It's just like I thought the downtime to fun time was very poorly balanced, I found.
I agree.
And the actual fun time wasn't that fun. I did make the horrible mistake. Okay, when I play RPGs, I often pick a warrior class because I feel like, or maybe a paladin class or something like that, because I feel like the developers often know that that's kind of a default for a lot of people, so I feel that they've put a lot of effort into making that an experience that most people will enjoy. Like casters in Dark Souls clearly get the short end of the stick, for instance. So I played a soldier.
I played a soldier too when I played through
Which is a mistake. I would tell everyone who's looking to play a Mass Effect game, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, never pick the soldier unless you just want to play a shooter, because it's bad.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts of why this game?
Well, it's just like the mechanics of this game aren't very well refined. I think this was a big contentious thing with fans back in the day. I think that's BioWare actually took that criticism to heart when they made Mass Effect 2. But not to jump ship here, but with the first game, like the controls were not very good.
No, and there was a lot of systems that were bogging it down. Like I think the loot system, you were getting useless crap at all times.
Yeah, and it felt like you were just like it's like all this words.
Useless grinding.
Yeah.
It was grinding within your inventory. You're like selling it or
you're playing the menus.
it.
Which is terrible.
I also felt like the Mako missions got very repetitive very
those
quickly.
were awful.
Yeah, they were like the Mako itself.
That's
is
one of the
really
biggest
bad.
problems with this game, though. A lot of people hated them, and they were just like, "Why is this even in the game?" Like,
Yeah, because it feels like you're driving like a rhino on a skateboard.
and it's like empty environments you're driving around in too. Like there's
Sorry,
nothing.
did you say feel like you're driving a rhino on a skateboard?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
A drunk rhino on a skateboard.
A drunk rhino on a skateboard. That's something you don't see every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a PC guy. Don't play that PlayStation stuff. Tell me why the first Uncharted ain't so good.
Oh boy, where to start with this one? Because here's the thing, Uncharted is so beloved, but I think the reason why it's so beloved is because of the later games. But some people forget that the first game isn't that good.
It never made a splash. I remember it came out and people were like,
Yeah, they didn't really know what this was.
The thing
Well, it was
that
kind of-
everyone talked about when this game came out is like when you walk into some water and then walk out, like half of
You're
your body
wet,
is
and you're
wet.
like, "Oh my god, it works!"
But your hair is always in a nice.
We don't
it's
screw with
kind of-
Nathan's hair.
Yeah, but yeah, the game had a lot of problems with it. Like a lot of the characters, like a lot of sections, there'll just be cases where you just fight waves of enemies in the same spot over again. It just got repetitive, and they really overstayed their welcome. There was
Rather than in the later games when you're kind of moving through a large set piece.
Yeah.
With
like, the climbing sections I also thought were really overdone here. Like
I mean,
they just didn't feel interesting at all here.
And I think it's the first game. Of course, the first game in a series that's trying to explore this open environment, and they didn't really understand how best to do that. And they put a big emphasis on story. Of course, Naughty Dog is known for their story, and so they're trying to balance those two things: a great story, engaging characters, with this gameplay. And it wasn't the worst, but you see the big difference from the first one to the third or second, third, and fourth, how they really refined that. And then, of course, with The Last of Us doing that.
I have a funny story though, because like I was playing this recently on the Nathan Drake collection, and my wife and I were sitting there. We were playing this game, and this might annoy a lot of fans, but you know what? I don't care. We were actually laughing about how bad it was.
how bad the game was.
Yeah, because it was so cheesy.
But it's a lot like Mass Effect, where like I think everyone's treasured memories about the franchise began in number 2.
Yeah.
And were destroyed by number 4.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah, so like some of the examples, like there's a lot of story plot holes as well. Like you go into ancient temples and there's already guards well ahead of you somehow.
yeah, and like all the torches stay lit for all
Yeah,
eternity.
nobody
Also,
thought it out.
also side characters teleport all the time somehow, which is very weird.
Video
Oh, man.
games.
Okay, so this is not exactly a popular opinion, but this game was never actually that good. It does, we've talked about this before, top 10 Star Wars games. My unpopular opinion was that like, it was just never, it was, I'm so careful about this because people love this game. People love
Just
this.
jump in. Just jump in.
I'm jumping in. Okay, it just wasn't that good of a shooter when you compare to other games at the time. I think that people have treasured memories about this game because there's no other game to have come out since that really satisfied the multiplayer shooter in the Star Wars universe desire, the large battle shooter. However, it left a lot to be desired. A lot of games that came out at this time did multiplayer shooters way better. It's just, often I talk about when we look at a Star Wars game, if you were to remove the Star Wars license, could this game stand on its own? You take something like Knights of the Old Republic, and that game is a very solid RPG with a Star Wars skin. Now, I think a lot of Star Wars games start with the Star Wars skin and kind of build stuff on that, and they rely on it. And I think Star Wars Battlefront, front and center. That being said, if that extra Star Wars bit makes it worth it for you, cool, bro. I'm just saying, little bit of constructive criticism here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I do agree that some of the mechanics didn't feel as refined as like other third-person shooters at the time.
I'm also somewhat biased, and I think this kind of gets to that, is because I was on the PC crowd, and I think there was a lot of options for precision shooting on PC, and this game was really great on consoles because you didn't have to have that. You could use the third-person perspective, you could aim from the hip all the time, whereas like, what year did this come out? Does anyone?
2005.
2005? 2005, man, we had some cool stuff by then. When were we playing? Anyway.
I think Battlefield 2 came out that time. I spent most of my time in that game.
Yeah, well, okay, so I am not going to dig my hole any deeper, especially because I've screwed up my PowerPoint presentation, so let's just move on. Let's just keep going. This is why they don't let me hold the keyboard. here we have in this picture the art for Sonic Adventure, which depicts Sonic's old games, and Sonic fighting against his current nemesis, which is widescreen aspect ratios.
And apparently also like the idea of
Very
like
stretched.
he can't have a straight spine, so everything has to be curved in his body.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that pose?
So this is the Dreamcast one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
First Sonic 3D adventure, the answer to Mario 64, the good 3D Sonic game.
Right.
Gentlemen, why does it suck? Sorry, excuse me. It doesn't suck. Constructive criticism. Why is it not as good as people remember?
Where do I begin
Dave's got
the doozies.
He's got an essay.
Oh my god, this game. Like, here's the thing, I played this game, I also played Sonic Adventure 2 when that came out. And I didn't think they were good games to begin with when they came out to begin with. The first one in particular, the animation is horrific.
Yeah. And there's no collision detection.
No collision detection.
Terrible camera angles. Oh man.
And the levels are really like cheap looking design. Like if you were to release the game today,
But like, okay, I'm not sure I understand that argument, because you said it before, and it's like if you were to release it today, I mean, the game is horribly dated. Games are always a product of their time.
Even then, like you go like along these paths that are like suspended like up in midair, and there's nothing underneath. It feels like it's a student project.
Oh, I see. Okay, so like even by evaluating it by the standards of the time, it's still.
Yeah, and like so a lot of the geometry is really crude looking. Like,
okay,
but
counterpoint.
What's interesting about this too is it got really good reviews when it came out. Like a lot of people love this game, and if you go look at it, it's probably one of the best rated Sonic games.
I feel like a lot of people rated it that way because it was a Dreamcast exclusive.
Yeah, and do you think they were? And I remember being blown away by how the game looked. You were saying that like some of the level design not so hot, but I remember seeing people play it, and like the Dreamcast was light years ahead of the other consoles that came out at the time. I mean, the PS2 and the Xbox would eventually eclipse it, totally kill it. But for a hot minute, this was the best looking console out there.
Absolutely.
Do you think that kind of dazed people?
Absolutely. I think the fact that it was on. I think the Dreamcast is this this amazing thing that just never had the potential. Its potential was never reached, and people remembered fondly. And so a game on that system is like this mythic thing.
And then there is the big elephant in the room, which is a oversized cat.
Oh, Big the Cat.
Oh,
yeah. That's
Fishing.
where, all you do in that section is find a spot to fish and fish for ages. And it's quite literally the most frustrating game mechanic ever.
Okay,
and I'm saying that right now. It is the most frustrating game
You
mechanic
heard it here
ever.
first, people.
Yeah, it's number one on whatever list that comes up with. So, okay, fair enough. I think people who say they love Sonic Adventure should be forced to begin their playthroughs with the Big the Cat sections.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay.
Also, hot take before we go, Dreamcast, overrated. I don't know. Maybe I actually don't mean that. I don't mean that. Don't at me. Gentlemen, I think we're done.
Yeah.
That was entry number one. That little awkward
that
pause
was,
like, was signifying the fact that Deconstructed is over.
Okay.
Please, talk to us in the comments with civility, but please talk to us. We want to know. The whole point of the show is to discuss things and go back and forth. It's not to tell anyone that we're wrong or that the games they love are bad. Maybe a little bit.
Sometimes.
But yeah, let us know also what other lists you'd like to deconstruct, or you'd like to see us deconstruct, that is. And as usual, thank you to my lovely panelists. Always a pleasure to see you guys.
No worries.
We sit next to each other, but whatever. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
Thanks for watching Mojo Plays. Be sure to subscribe and click on the link in the description below to check out our suggestion page and vote on what content you'd like to see us cover next.